Let's get into it, though, man. I'm
Okay.
super excited to talk to you now that you're in this role. How are you? First, we should tell people what the name of the, what do you call it? Like agency?
Yeah,
Branch
we're
of government? What is it?
Yeah, so we're an office within the executive branch of the state of Utah. So
Which John Huntsman created in his term of when he was governor. It was called the Governor's Office of Economic Development, right?
that's correct.
And now it's the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity.
It is.
So GOEO, is that how you say it?
GOEO, yeah.
That's cool. I actually like that better than GoEd. It's kind of a cool ring to it.
Well, I mean, people, if they don't love it, they get used to it quickly. So it's just like all other government acronyms.
How did you get to GOEO?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but happy to share that
tell
story
me.
with you.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the Ogden Valley area, northern Utah.
Yeah. Stark Brothers.
Starks Brothers, that's right. So Huntsville, Eden, and just a small rural community, and loved it. Had a wonderful childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Weber High School. Went to Weber State following a church mission to Ecuador.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
How was that?
It was awesome. In fact, my 2 oldest sons and my wife and I are going back in October.
Really?
So we're going to go see some friends and people that we knew. So
Is this your first time back since the
it
mission?
is. We tried to go back, but COVID happened. And so hopefully this time nothing else happens.
Even if it does, just go.
Just roll with it.
Just go.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Ecuador is an interesting place.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. There's a lot of corruption, but there's a lot of good too. Wonderful people. And
There's a lot of corruption here, too. Isn't
they're,
it funny how we look at other countries and we're like, there's a lot of corruption, and then we have like I don't want to get political, so let's not.
yeah, but you're right. It's everywhere.
I almost went to like some huge rant. Well, what do I care? I actually don't even care.
Yeah.
So you went to Ecuador, then came back. Went to Weber State.
Went to Weber State, and I was a senior at Weber, and I met Jason Perry, who is the executive director of GOED at the time.
Was he the original, or who was the original?
There was a person I think named Martin Fry. I had never met Martin, and then Jason replaced him.
The climber guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Martin. I know Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jason was just this up-and-coming superstar and really was intrigued by the work that he was doing at the state, and economic development's always kind of spoken to me. I had the chance to serve as the student body president at Weber State and
Wow.
served as the on the board of trustees.
Look at you, man.
Oh.
Student body president.
Well, call me Uncle Rico, if you will. So
That's cool. What drove you to do that? I'm always fascinated by student body presidents.
okay, so older brother Steve,
Yeah.
he served as student body president 4 or 5 years before I did.
Okay.
And that was before my mission. And so I looked at him and some of the experiences he had. He actually won as a write-in candidate,
You're
which is
kidding.
amazing. He was going to run for vice president kind of at the last minute. He said, you know what, I feel like I need to run for president. And he won. And it really helped shape him and kind of his outlook and his professional kind of outlook. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I got off my mission, got involved with student government. Honestly, it was kind of a form of financial assistance because they provide either full or half scholarships.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I thought, hey, this is a way to pay for school. And so got involved, ended up loving it, ran for student body president against 4 other people. And we won. We had a great time. And through all of that, though, I just became better acquainted with the way Utah works. So
Sure.
we went to the legislature and presented and testified. And I thought, this is a cool space. And education's important. Working with the business community was important. And so found myself as a senior, having just served a term as student body president, thinking, I really like this concept of public service.
Uh-huh.
So I meet Jason Perry, arrange for an internship, and I was an intern at GOED,
Okay.
working kind of in the business development team, and had a wonderful experience. They hired me on full-time shortly after, and so I was there for a total of just about 2.5 years. Decided, though, I just need to go back to grad school. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So
What did you go to grad school for?
I went to BYU,
Uh-huh.
and in the Marriott School, I participated in the Masters of Public Administration program.
Cool.
And, graduated in 2011. Loved my time in Provo. Just a great place, a great program. And
welcome back.
well, exactly.
What a homecoming for you today.
Oh, man. So I actually ended up teaching in the Marriott School within the program for 10 years as an adjunct.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
That's fun.
And that just kind of, I think, kind of satisfied just that itch that I have,
Sure.
being in the classroom, being with students, being in a higher education setting. Just great things are happening and great students. And so
Yeah. That's super cool. So you did that. You were an adjunct professor for a decade. Were you doing anything else besides being a professor?
Yeah, so that was just kind of part-time.
Yeah.
So after grad school, my wife and I moved up to the beautiful Heber Valley.
Yes.
And at the time, they had an economic development and a tourism office. And then they had a separate chamber of commerce that was really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took the chamber under our umbrella and kind of created this public-private partnership with the community. Heber City, Midway City, Wasatch County, and then about 400 private investors, members of our chamber, came together, and we kind of built it from the ground up. And it was during a time of explosive growth in Wasatch County.
I'll say.
Businesses, residential, and it's just such an awesome place up there. So loved every minute of it. I was there for 8 years. In fact, as you know, I launched the Heber Valley Silicon Slopes chapter.
Oh, yeah. That's where I think you and I started first working together,
think
was
so.
when you were running that.
Yeah, and I had followed your career and knew that you were one of the cool guys. And
I don't think that, but
so after about 8 years in Heber, working with government, working with businesses, just kind of being in this really cool space, Val Hill, who is the executive director at GOEO. Val and I, by the way, know each other from when he came to pick up his son in Ecuador, who served a mission in my same mission. So I'd met Val way before.
Oh, that's cool.
We had just kind of stayed in touch. He's been a mentor and a friend. And so 2019, he called and he said, I know you're loving your job in Heber Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Can I convince you to come work for me at GOEO? And after 8 years, I just kind of thought this would be a great opportunity. Yeah. And so 2019, November, I joined as a managing director, kind of overseeing the business services portfolio. And then shortly after COVID hit, the whole world was turned upside down. And I thought, what in the world have I done? But we kind of weathered the storm, learned a lot of good lessons.
Yeah.
Was there for about 3 years. And then as Governor Cox was elected and as our previous director, Dan Himmert, left,
Yeah.
it just felt like kind of a natural thing. And so I threw my hat in the ring. And in January of this year, Governor Cox appointed me to serve as the executive director. So.
Which is a great appointment. Great judgment by our governor to appoint you. And Himmert was great. Val Hill was incredible and still active in this community. What was COVID like at GOEO? That must have been interesting.
Well, as the governor said, it was kind of like flying an airplane and building it at the same time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the federal dollars that came to the states to help businesses came through our office. And so we had to build programs. We had to allocate money to different communities and companies just quickly as possible. So the phone was always ringing. We had kind of a strike team ready to go, working with the SBA, making sure that, first of all, we had to get designated as a state that could allocate SBA funding.
Interesting.
And then we had to build teams that would actually distribute the funding. And if you think of government as kind of being a slow engine,
Mm-hmm.
like we would receive an application, we would vet it, and we would pump out these grant dollars within 48 to 72 hours,
Mm-hmm.
which is just remarkable. Millions and millions of dollars. So we had to make sure that there was a good vetting process, that we were, giving money to those who really needed it.
Sure. And we're talking like the PPP loans? Is that what you guys were doing?
PPP and some different loans as well. There was a commercial rental program, and there was a program that would basically be kind of an incentive to companies to offer discounts. And so we would pay the companies, they would offer discounts to clients, and so it was kind of a win-win-win, just so that clients would come into their doors. But we learned a lot, so impressed by the team. And at that point, we really adopted this mission statement of, you know what, GOEO or GOEO is going to do business at the speed of business.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you remade that department to make that true? Because you really are super responsive and to the same speed as business. I remember like our recent experience we had with you at the helm was the Silicon Valley Bank stuff, right? when Silicon Valley Bank was going down. We were having these Zoom calls on like late Friday and Saturday, and there were you and your team, and I think you were actually organizing them.
We were organizing them. We wanted to be right at the front of a potential collapse and make sure that our financial markets were secure. So pulled together some thought leaders within the space and just said, if something happens, what can we do to be prepared? And we had a contingency plan where the state could be the backstop so that banks could continue to loan without the fear of going under. And luckily, things worked themselves out, and we didn't have to go down that path. But
yeah, what a waste of a weekend.
What a waste of a weekend. But I got to hang out with some cool people, Brad Bonham and others, and it was good.
No, that was fun. And yeah, it's cool to see like our state rally like that. Actually, that was a good example. I mean, obviously we didn't end up needing to do anything, but the state was ready if we needed to do something Monday morning. And we knew, didn't that crisis start like Friday afternoon or something? Like, it was crazy.
That's really
quickly.
It went into high gear Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
and we had meetings that night and into Saturday, and then we're prepared for a Monday announcement, and Monday things corrected themselves. So
I remember waking up Monday. I'm like, so what did we just do this weekend?
What did we do?
I'm like looking around. I'm like, sorry that I was gone all weekend. No reason, really, actually. Okay, so what do you think of now? Like, it used to be the governor's office of economic development would try to go get companies to come to the state of Utah, attract talent, attract capital, but also attract companies, right? Which was really important back then. And still is probably to a certain extent to get companies to come here and set up shop and all that type of stuff. But it seems like it's changed to, let's get the right type of companies.
Yeah.
What type of economy do we want to have here in the state? Growth is coming no matter what. And so what type of growth do we want? Is that kind of like the reason for the opportunity instead of development at this point? Because it's developed, mission accomplished, right?
Well, if you kind of go back to the time of the 2000 Olympics, Utah was really put on the global stage. All eyes were on the state, and we just saw this real spike in population growth and interest. And then you couple in the emergence of tech and our tech community and just different factors lining up, we did go through this explosive growth period. And so at the time, from 2004 really to about 2018, 2020 maybe, the focus was growth. And you saw the state giving incentives to some awesome companies. We saw Hershey's, Adobe, Procter & Gamble, but we also gave incentives to companies that call centers,
right?
Other types of industries that probably are not the best use of a tax incentive, knowing that many of them are going to come anyway. And so strategically, we did kind of refocus. It's not about development for development's sake, but it's about what opportunities are we going to have for the next generation of Utahns, and what jobs are going to pay the best wages, what are clean industries, like who do we really want to be now that we've kind of grown up a little bit and matured as an economy and as a state, who do we want to be for the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Yeah.
So that opportunity, that emphasis is really forward focused and not so much, looking behind us.
So what do we want to be in the next 20 years?
Well, we have gone through this robust process of kind of identifying industries that we think have the greatest return on investment, and both in terms of jobs, in terms of CapEx, giving back to the community. We try to align our efforts with higher education and public education so that we're aligning the skill set. So, Utah, we have the Mighty 5 national parks. We kind of have our Mighty 5 targeted industries.
Yeah, what are those?
So it's fintech or financial services.
We're good at that.
Utah's just really a hotbed for that, especially in the industrial banking space. Advanced manufacturing. Something that's really cool about that is you think of COVID and all of the lessons we learned. Utah and the United States have been so dependent on foreign countries for manufacturing that we really said, let's take this in control, so to speak, and nearshore and bring manufacturing back. So we made that an emphasis, advanced manufacturing of services, of parts, food manufacturing.
That's smart. That's actually really smart long term, particularly as you look at the political environment overseas, in particular with China.
It's unstable right now,
Yeah.
and I think if there's ever a need for kind of homegrown manufacturing, it's now.
Is the federal government pushing the state to do that, or is that us doing that on our own?
That's us doing it on our own, but by kind of declaring that as a focus area, we were able to unlock some federal grants that come back to our manufacturing community. So it really was a strategic move.
Cool.
Then in addition to financial services, advanced manufacturing, we have focus on life sciences and healthcare innovation.
Right. We're good at that.
And it used to just be life sciences, but we added healthcare innovation specifically to be more broad in terms of what are our capabilities, what does the future look like, and we're doing a great job. Life sciences in Utah is a really fast-growing industry.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Utah is the fastest-growing life science community in the country right now.
And is a lot of that coming out of the University of Utah?
It is. It's coming out of the University of Utah, out of Utah State, as well as BYU. And so there's a robust partnership between the universities.
But kind of those, like, I know that the University of Utah is like by far the biggest research university we have in the state.
It is.
So maybe a bulk coming from there, Utah State, and then BYU. And then how do you get those? Because those take a long time to incubate, right?
They do. And really kudos to the pioneers in the industry who've been investing and who've been patient. And that growth does take a long time, but we're starting to see a lot of fruits of their labors. So we're planting seeds now for the next generation. And so it's not something that happens overnight, but hopefully we have kind of a fertile ground for that growth.
Yeah, that's cool. I know that talking to Senator Romney and being in some of those meetings, that's really important to him, is getting the life science and, I guess broader healthcare stuff now as well. And you've got IHC, which is one of the greatest healthcare institutions in the country.
We do. And just having...
And University of Utah Health.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty incredible.
It really is. And so we look at this formula. It's called a location quotient. And that basically determines the density of a sector. And we have very high location quotients for each of these 5 areas, meaning we have graduates, university graduates in the area. We have capital. We have jobs. So now it's just investing and growing those industries so they continue to produce.
Mm-hmm. So what's the fourth one?
Fourth one is, if you can believe it, tech.
Oh, wow.
And it's
we're okay at that.
We're I think doing a pretty good job. The nice thing though is we realize it's not the government creating jobs, it's the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
And so for each of the industries, we really try to help from wherever we can as a government, but recognizing that the growth happens at the private sector. And so we'll nurture, we'll support, we'll partner with the industries to help kind of stand them up and let them go do what they do so well. And especially tech. We see this amazing tech scene here in Utah.
When you're visiting other states or other leaders or other people who hold your position in other states, what is their perspective on the state of Utah?
Well, I like to think that I've been around the block since my intern days to, this most recent chapter. And I think the narrative has shifted quite a bit from Utah. I went there once skiing, to Utah. Amazing things are happening there. Tell me what you guys are doing. Just recently, we went to France and the UK. We've gone on different trade missions, and, everybody's always wanting to visit with Utah. Like, what's the secret sauce?
Yeah.
You may know this, but U.S. News and World Report just listed Utah as having the best economy in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's not a one-time kind of fluke.
Yeah, we just keep doing that.
Keep doing it. So
it's what do you think does make that true? Why do you think we are so good at, I mean, again, there used to be, I used to always make fun of Governor Herbert when we'd do like these ribbon cuttings and things together, and he'd be like, hey, we're number 1 in Forbes for like the 12th year in a row. I'm like, we could just get the same speech, dude. Let's just put these two things together. Why is that true? What does make that true?
There's so many things that go into it. Natalie Gochner from the University of Utah, the Kim C. Gardner Institute, she likes to say that we've arrived at the elite status of state economies. So we have this elite economy, but it's built on many factors. Population growth. We've always, whenever a state grows, their economy is going to expand. We've been fortunate to live in a state where we have a lot of kids, and we're seeing a lot of people take interest in coming to Utah as well. As industries grow, we attract talent from other states, and so that just continues to add to the richness and vibrancy of our economy. But then as we survey site selectors and companies, one of the biggest factors is always quality of life. People love to ski. How many times have you heard the story? Oh, I came to college, 30 years ago to ski, and I stayed because I fell in love. We have the national parks, 45 state parks. We're minutes away from world-class universities. The new airport's a big draw.
Yeah.
The inland port, the point of the mountain. We just have so many unique ingredients that's just turning into this formula that's attracting people and spawning that growth.
Wait, what's the fifth one?
So the fifth one is aerospace and defense.
Yeah, this one's huge.
Is
this our biggest industry, actually?
It is. It represents a large percentage of our GDP. And having Hill Air Force Base, the base itself employs 30,000 people. Last year, the base and its surrounding companies produced a $9 billion economic impact in the state.
It's crazy.
So sometimes I think we drive by a Hill Air Force Base. It's like, that we feel patriotic for a moment. We see the jets, but the reality is it's pumping our economy. It's fueling the economy. There's so many good jobs, engineering jobs. You can't find enough people to fill these jobs.
It's transforming northern Utah.
It really is.
It's pretty incredible. And yeah, I mean, they're at the forefront of a lot of innovation and tech. I think it's the most tech employees are at Hill Air Force Base in the state.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Well, and the nice thing about aerospace and all of these sectors that we've discussed is success breeds success. So as we get one company to come to the state as we grow one industry, it continues to grow, continues to attract people. We're doing some national branding through our associations. UADA is the newest association representing aerospace and defense, and that stands for the Utah Aerospace and Defense Association. And they're doing some really remarkable things with cybersecurity and tech and aerospace. We look at BioHive and BioUtah.
Yeah.
Silicon Slopes. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, it's actually incredible how many organizations there are, huh? It's pretty cool. Okay, so what have you learned from these various governors you've worked under?
Starting with Governor Huntsman in 2004, he is a true statesman.
Yeah.
And one of the smartest people that I've been around. And so just learning his style on how to get things done was really
extremely
impressive.
Intelligent.
Super bright.
Yeah.
Super visionary.
Yeah.
Working with Governor Herbert. Governor Herbert was a natural leader who just got stuff done. He was kind of a no-nonsense governor, and it was just fun to watch his style.
Yeah.
And then working with Governor Cox has been such a privilege. Just seeing the way he interacts with people, he cares. He cares about industry. He cares about all of Utah. What's really cool is to see his focus expand to not just the Wasatch Front, but all parts of the state. And I don't think there's ever been a governor as focused on infrastructure. And if there's a legacy for Governor Cox, he's got to be the infrastructure governor. Governor Herbert was the jobs governor. For us to continue to sustain those jobs and attract industry, we have to have the right infrastructure of broadband and water and roads and all forms of infrastructure. And we're seeing Governor Cox lead out on that. And with that infrastructure, industry will follow. So sometimes I think there's this feeling of, we've got to do more to attract more companies. But I think he sees the big picture that growth needs adequate infrastructure investment. And so,
yeah. What do you think the future of the state is? I mean, how are we looking?
We're in a new Utah. Approximately 1 out of every 4 people is ethnically diverse. Spanish is a real hot commodity right now. There's a greater need than ever to connect with the Latino population.
Yeah.
The future appears very bright in terms of all the indicators. We see these sectors flourishing, but we also have challenges. And the challenges is how do we maintain a competitive economy with our housing market? with our low labor. We have a high labor participation, but our unemployment rates are low. So how do we fill those jobs?
Mm-hmm.
And then specifically, how do we fill certain types of jobs? For example, engineering is one area where it's just so difficult to attract adequate talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the future of Utah, honestly, our best days are ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue to innovate. We're going to continue to do amazing things. But it's going to take a lot of work between the legislature, the governor, with our private sector leaders. But really excited about the future.
Do you think you'll ever run for office? I could see you running for office.
I have 4 amazing kids, and my wife and I feel like we have 10 jobs between the 4 kids. So that's not on my radar anytime soon. But if I ever do, it'll be down the road when they're out of the nest.
Is your brother going to get us a baseball team?
I can't make any promises, but I think we're all feeling very optimistic and hopeful. And if you want my opinion, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. What do you think we'll call it? Pioneers? You know what's funny? I had Steve on a podcast back in the day, way long ago, actually, probably 2014. And we were talking about whether Utah would ever get one. And we were talking about the name Pioneers.
Oh, and what did he say then?
I think he laughed because he probably knew that he would eventually be in the mix, and so he couldn't say anything.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think we named that thing? How could it not be the Pioneers?
I mean, the Pioneers, there's a certain ring to it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of good ideas out there. I'd have to get
do
some
hand cart races, 7th inning.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun? Stuff like that. Okay, so it'd be interesting for you to and tell people about the incentive program.
Yeah.
At the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and kind of how incentives work, because I think a lot of times that gets misconstrued. Like, hey, the state gave this company incentives, and now they just laid off X amount of people, or vice versa. Those headlines are
totally
constantly floating around and misinformed and all this type of stuff, because the incentives are not, you don't get the incentives up front, right? They're performance based.
They're performance based, so we call it post performance. So if a company wants to come into Utah, we'll do a really in-depth screening. And let me back up.
Mm-hmm.
Not if a company wants to come to Utah. About 2/3 of the incentives that we give are actually to Utah companies.
Mm-hmm.
So our audience isn't every California company that's interested in the state. The audience is supporting our own and with business expansion efforts. And then as companies look at Utah, and as long as they're in the right industry and kind of the right fit, then we'll entertain discussions.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, though, they're post-performance incentives. And so a company would have to submit a number of jobs that they plan on creating over X amount of years, how much capital investment they're going to put into Utah's economy, and then we'll enter into an agreement after it's been reviewed and supported. And then if a company performs well, then we can incrementally rebate a small percentage of their taxes back to the company as they perform. And so I've heard people say, well, you're not going to use my tax dollars to give some incentive to a company. And the answer is, you're right. We're not. These are tax dollars that the company is spending in order to come to the state or expand. Yeah. And we're just giving them a percentage of their own investment back to them over time as they create jobs and as they invest. Now, hypothetically, a company enters into a contract, things are looking good, for whatever reason, they just are unable to hit their mark, then that's okay. We still get them in Utah. We still support them, but they don't receive any type of financial benefit. So you perform, you get the incentive. If you don't perform, then we're still good. So
I think the other thing that's important for people to understand too is, what choice do you have? You kind of have to do this as a state because every other state is doing this. And so you've got to be in the game in some way. Is that right?
Yeah, we have to be in the game. And even though we're in the game, it's still a very conservative approach. Some other states are giving massive amounts of cash up front. And that's a risky proposition because if a company goes under, then the state's out that money. Mm-hmm. So this is a calculated, thoughtful process that attracts the right type of companies, lowers the risk, and we're giving a percentage of their own taxes back over time. And so it's kind of a winning formula for Utah.
And it's become politicized probably because Bezos did that, Amazon, HQ2, every state and area put your proposal for. Did we put I'm sure we did.
We did, and that wasn't during my time. We did put forward a proposal, and you win some and you lose some, and
that's a good one to lose.
Yeah, it's the nature of the game.
Honestly, I think that's probably a good one to lose, and they probably would have taken that point of the mountain. And I think we have bigger plans than helping Bezos out.
So,
although, come speak at Summit, Bezos.
That's right. Come on.
Well, you can. If you come speak at Summit, I'll give you that land.
Yeah. So I won't go into too much detail. We did just lose a project in northern Utah that we were excited about, kind of fit the mold, and that's okay.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. We're still receiving or winning big projects. An example, we just had the biggest capital expansion in the history of the state, and that's Texas Instruments here in Lehi.
Yeah. Tell us about that deal. That's interesting.
So, wonderful company, already had Utah roots. They took over the old Micron building, doing some amazing work. We live in this era now where chips are everything, and so these semiconductors need to be produced somewhere. TI was interested in expanding its capabilities, and we worked around the clock with TI for a number of months, hosted them multiple times, went through many, many negotiations, and ultimately we said that we would give them a post-performance tax incentive if they expand into Utah. And we were able to sign an agreement, and they're moving forward. In fact, they have a groundbreaking on November 2nd.
Yeah.
But they are investing $11 billion into a new facility and creating around 800 jobs over the next 20 years. And these are high-paying jobs. It's a clean industry. It's a real win for Utah.
They're putting the silicon in Silicon Slopes finally.
Yes, exactly.
Which we've had. I mean, you mentioned Micron and stuff, but Texas Instruments, that's what they do. And so now we've got the silicon. We don't have to pretend like we don't have it anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is awesome. They just need to change their name to Utah Instruments instead of Texas.
They do. We're working on that.
Yeah, that should have been part of the deal.
Yeah.
It's like, change it. No, we're not Texas. Actually, Texas is great. As you think about rural Utah and how to expand, because it seems like all of this economic development and opportunity and all that type of stuff has happened along the Wasatch Front and down in southern Utah, St. George area. What about everyone else?
It's a great question. And if we expect the same results without doing anything differently, then that's insanity, right? Excuse me.
No, you're good.
So we've taken some measures to help influence the growth, the positive growth in rural Utah. And one of them, we talked about this EdTIF program.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, a company, in order to receive an EdTIF, has to hire at least 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard for a lot of these rural communities to, have a Utah company or out-of-state company commit to hiring 50 people. Maybe you get 20 or 30. And so we've changed it now to where we have something called the Red TIF or the Rural EdTIF. So it lowers the threshold for job creation, and it creates a more favorable incentive for a company looking to grow into rural Utah, meaning they don't have to invest as much and they don't have to commit as much in terms of hiring.
Right.
And what we've seen is where before, for about 10 years, we had these rural communities receive one or two of these expansions. And in the past 24 months, we've had 13 of them.
Oh, wow.
And so these are companies that still go through the screening process. We're working closer than we've ever worked with the local communities to make sure that they're excited. I can announce one that we just actually provided an incentive to this week. It's a company called Lakeshore Learning going up into Box Elder County. And Lakeshore will hire hundreds of people. They'll invest millions of dollars, and they're going into a small community in Box Elder County that's never received any type of corporate expansion. And so this program's enabling these companies now to, broaden their horizons off of the Wasatch Front and really focus on rural Utah.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, it's great to talk to you about everything you've got going on and everything the governor's office is doing. We're lucky to be in Utah, aren't we?
It's an easy job working for the state when you believe in the product, and I believe in the product.
Yeah.
And our people, our businesses, it's just a wonderful time to be here. Our kids, our families should be grateful that they can say that, hey, I grew up in Utah, because we're not a small state. We're a medium-sized state. We punch above our weight. We're doing amazing things, and just really excited about the future.
You're going to make a great governor.
Yeah. Maybe like the governor of the local sewer board or something. But
Thanks for coming on, my friend.
you too. Always a pleasure.